The forest sleeps and inheritance always smells of money, or of death. Antoine Leclerc received both packaged in the mossy stone of an old house in Auvergne. We had studied together at the Sorbonne. He was a year younger, a lively, smiling boy, with burning eyes and fingers perpetually stained with paint. He was obsessed with Impressionists and absinthe, and then life scattered us. He was flung into a remote province, to a village with a name that sounded like a whisper, Saint-Sulpice-sur-Sûle. The house stood on the outskirts, right at the edge of a dark, nearly impenetrable forest that sprawled across the slopes of extinct volcanoes like a heavy, slumbering beast. Antoine was an artist to his fingertips. He dreamed of silence, of seclusion, to create far from Parisian noise. He sent me a few postcards in the first weeks, ecstatic, full of descriptions of the harsh beauty of those places. Basalt cliffs covered in moss, mists creeping through the valleys in the mornings, the distant chime of the single church bell. In one he had photographed himself in front of the house, lean, smiling, in a stretched-out sweater, palette in hand. Then the letters became less frequent, and their tone changed. The enthusiasm faded, replaced by a detached, almost clinical observation. He wrote about the village's oddities. He noticed that the locals never looked toward the forest. If a path led there, they would take a long detour. Their gazes, if he mentioned his house or what lay beyond it, became empty, stony. Le bois dort, they would mutter. The forest sleeps. And then they would hurry away. He tried to ask the old priest, Father Mathieu, after Mass. The man, upon hearing about the house and the forest, paled and crossed himself with a trembling hand. There, Monsieur Leclerc, lives something old, older than these mountains. It is not evil, it is forgotten, and the forgotten always want to be known again. The priest refused to say more, only pressing a small silver crucifix into Antoine's hand and telling him to hang it on his bedroom door. One day, while sketching, Antoine stumbled upon a strange place at the forest's edge. A circle of blackened stones, lichen-crusted. In the center, a depression in the earth, as if from a massive hoof. And silence. Dead. Absolute silence. No birdsong, no insects. The air was heavy, sweetly putrid. He felt a surge of primal fear and fled, abandoning his palette. When he returned the next day, he found no circle, no depression. Only even, untouched moss. From that night on, his dreams turned strange. He dreamed of waking to a sound, a dull, measured knocking on the wall of the house from the side facing the forest. Tap, 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 as if someone vast and unhurried were rapping the stone with a massive branch. In the dream, he would approach the window, but beyond the glass veiled in lunar haze nothing was visible. Only the knocking. He always woke in a cold sweat, with the same sensation, that he was not alone, that someone stood in the corner of the room breathing heavily and moistly, watching him. But as soon as he turned his head, the corner was empty. Only the smell of damp and rotten leaves lingered. Insomnia began to unhinge him. In desperation, he turned to painting. But what came from his brush were not landscapes. His canvases filled with obsessive images, distorted, elongated shadows cast by invisible objects, pale, mushroom-like eyes in the gloom, and always that same circle of stones. He once tried to burn a canvas in the fireplace. The paint only blackened and blistered, releasing that same sweet, rotten smell that now permeated the entire house. He grew thin, pale, and nervous. His creativity faltered. He could sit for hours before the fire, staring into the flames, trying to fend off the sense of impending doom. The life in his eyes had gone out, leaving only fatigue and dread. And then, she came. It happened on a night when a storm raged over the valley. Lightning split the sky, thunder roared across the mountains, and then between the crashes came another sound, That same knocking. But this time, not in a dream. In reality. Thud. 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 From the blank wall facing the forest, Antoine froze. The knock repeated, louder, insistent. In a fit of mad courage or despair, he seized a kerosene lamp and staggered to the door. He flung it open. Wind and rain lashed his face, and he saw her. At the forest's edge, between the trunks of ancient beeches, stood a figure. Tall, unnaturally thin, cloaked in a dark, rain-soaked shroud. From beneath the hood, two pale phosphorescent spots glowed, a mockery of eyes. She did not move. She simply stared. And the knocking, now it came from everywhere. From the forest, from behind her, from the very walls of his house. He slammed the door and barred it with every bolt. He sat until morning, huddled in a corner clutching an old hunting knife. At dawn, when the storm passed, he forced himself outside. On the damp earth before the threshold, he saw prints, huge, elongated, with deep impressions where hooves should be. And on the door, just above the silver crucifix, a strange symbol drawn in mud, a spiral ending in a hook. He did not know how long he sat on the hallway's cold stone floor, staring at that door. His mind, poisoned by fear, clung to the last shreds of reason. A wild boar, he told himself, studying the tracks. Vandals from the village, he thought, staring at the symbol. But its smell? Its substance? No. In a trance, he seized his old Zenit camera. His hands shook as he photographed the tracks, the symbol. He needed proof. Facts before his sanity crumbled completely. In his makeshift darkroom under the red lamp, the images slowly emerged. On the photo of the tracks, clear evidence. But on the photo of the door, the symbol was gone. Only the old cracked wood, as if it had never been. But he had seen it, with his own eyes at dawn. Then it struck him. The camera had lain all night in the hallway, next to the door. While he developed the film, he had never once checked whether the symbol was still there. With a groan, he flung open the bathroom door and rushed to the entrance. The door was clean, no symbol, only the crucifix, lifeless and cold. And on the ground, the tracks were already blurring, fading, as if the earth itself were healing its wounds. His proof was vanishing before his eyes, leaving him with nothing but memory. Antoine did not pack. He simply got into his car and fled. He left everything behind, the house, the paintings, the camera with its cursed film. He returned to Paris a different man. We met months later in a café on Montmartre. He was a shadow, gaunt, trembling, hiding his hands in the pockets of an old coat. He told me this story without asking for belief, only stating facts. At the end, he paused, looked at his useless fingers, and said quietly, "The most terrible thing is not that this creature exists. The most terrible thing is that it did not wish me harm. It did not want to scare me away. It was just watching, choosing. And I feel that my escape changed nothing. Do you know what wet wool and rotten foliage smell like? Sometimes I wake at night and smell it in my apartment, and I hear a faint patient knock, tap, 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 as if someone is knocking on the door of my sleep. And I know one day I will wake, and that door will already be open.